we've been writing so far, let's first of all add functions to free the memory that we've allocated. As you know, it is very, very important to deallocate the memory that we allocate to store different structures in C. So let's first of all look at our automaton structure, and let's maybe review what we've done in the last couple of videos. So we created a structure to represent the automaton in memory, and this is our structure. And we also implemented memory safe wrappers to help us allocate and of course deallocate memory. So we have auton malloc, auton calloc, auton realloc, and the auton free function. We also implemented methods for initializing the states, initializing the automaton or this machine that is going to be able to tell us if a word belongs to a particular language or not. All right. So now we want to look at how we can free or deallocate memory that we've allocated with these memory safe wrappers, right? So the very first thing that I want to do is to see how we can free this entire, automaton structure. Let's first of all look at what we have. So if you look at the automaton here, we have a pointer to the alphabet like so, and then we're also storing a pointer to the we're also storing a dynamic array of states. So these are the things we want to free. But then of course, if we examine the state structure, we see that we also have another structure here, which is a pointer to the head of the linked list that is going to contain the transitions, right? So we also have to free this as we are freeing the states. So let me go back to automaton.c and let's look at how we can implement this method. So remember that all public functions are going to be prefixed with the word automaton. So we have auton. So this is not going to return anything because if we are freeing something, we are not supposed to return anything. So the type is going to be void, like so. And then we're going to say auton and then free, and then I'm going to say automaton, like so. And then what are we receiving as a parameter? Well, what we are going to receive is a pointer to the automaton that we want to free. So I'm going to say automaton. I'm just going to write the whole thing like so. Or we could have like written something shorter, but that is not the that is not very important. So we want to loop through all the states first. We want to first of all loop through all the states that we have. So let's first of all look at how we can free these states. Let me just add a little comment here. Free states like so. Now we want to be able to loop through all the states. So for int I, we'll say int I is equal to 0. For int I is equal to 0, and then I is less than. But we want to look at we want to loop through all the states, and so we will need to so we have automaton. Well, I is less than automaton, and then the number automaton like so, and then the number of states like so. Is it num members or num states? Let me just check. So we have num states, right? We have num states. Not alphabet. We don't receive a pointer to the alphabet, but we receive a pointer to the automaton structure, right? That's why it's bringing the properties of the alphabet, right? So let me just take care of that, like so. Paste. Not a double pointer, but a pointer to that. Now, of course, it gives us an error here because we have to say num states. Okay, we want to loop through all the states, and then we'll won't forget to increment this. So plus plus I or I plus plus whatever. So the very first thing that we want to do is we need to think about the transitions. How are we storing the transitions? Remember that the transitions are stored in a linked list. So before we free, the pointer to the head of the linked list, or before we free the memory that we allocated to store the current transition, we first of all need to get to the next transition, because if we free the transition just before, we won't be able to like loop through the rest of the transitions. So that is what we need to consider. Now, to sort of like simplify, what is happening here and the code that we want to write, because we want our code to be as clean as possible. So the very first thing that I want to do is to point to the head of the linked list that is going to contain the transitions. Right, so how do we do that? So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to get a pointer. We need to point to the head of the transition. So I'm just going to say current transition, like so. Then we need to point to the so we need to point to because we have a lot of states. Then each state has a pointer. Each state is pointing to its own outgoing transitions. So I'm just going to say I, like so, and then if I say transitions, now this is going to give me a pointer to the head of the transitions, and of course we're going to close this. Now while we have transitions to look at, we want to do something. While we have transitions to look at, we want to be able to do something. Well, the very first thing that we want to be able to do is we check if current transition is not no. So as long as current transition is not no, we want to free the memory that we allocated. But before we free the memory, remember, if we free the memory of the transition just before, we won't be able to look at the other transitions that we have. So the very first thing that we have to do here is to point to the next transition. Okay, we need to sort of like store the next transition before we even free the memory, right? Okay, so let's get another pointer. So we're going to say 18 node again. And then this is going to point to next. We're going to say this is going to point to next, like so. And then we'll say current transition. Remember that the transition has next, which points to the next transition. And then here we want to call our auton free, I think. Takes in a void pointer. We want to call our auton free. Now we free the current transition. And after freeing the current transition, we want to make sure that the current transition now is going to point to something new. It's going to point to next, right? That makes sense. And instead of like saying next, let's actually name, let's just refactor this a little bit, and let's say next transition. Okay, that is more descriptive so than next, because next doesn't like really mean anything. So next transition, like so, and this makes a lot of sense, right? So we've looped through everything. Now that we've like freed all the after this while loop, we're going to free all the transitions after this while loop. So the next thing that we want to do is to free the state. Okay, so we also want to call auton free, like so, and sort of like free the state. Okay, the current state that we are from, whose transitions were from you know so we're going to say states and then I, like so. That should take care of our transitions. That should take care of freeing our transitions. Great stuff. Now after doing all this, this is going to free a particular transition, and if we loop through all the transitions we have, by the end of this for loop, all the states are going, all the memory we use to sort of like store our states is going to be deallocated. And finally we want to free the dynamic array that is going to hold so we're going to say auton free, like so. And now we want to free the states. Okay, we want to free the dynamic array that contains the states. So we have states, like so. This should free everything that we allocated. And finally, at the very end, we can free we can auton free, like so. We can auton free the memory that we use to store the automaton. Now this should get rid of everything. Let's look at the alphabet and how we initialized, how we defined the structure for the alphabet. Let's see if there's something we need to do. Remember that here we have a pointer to the members, right? So what we need to do is to free this memory, right? We need a way of freeing this memory. But before we do that, okay, let's look at the alphabet. Let me just add a little comment here. Let's say free alphabet, like so. And we want to loop through, we want to free, so can we just say, for example, auton free, like so. for auton free, and then would say automaton, and then would like free the alphabet, something like this. Does it even make sense? I think it does. Right. Okay. So that is what we have. So if we need to modify it, we need to change things, we'll come back. So that is how we can free the entire automaton. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.